Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, I got a super fun, super exciting, and super Sega related video for you guys today. And no, not Alejandro Martin, the Trap House Video Game King. We are talking about Sega Model 3 emulation via Supermodel. Because if you know me and you watch the channel, you know I absolutely love this hardware. I collect a ton of it. I think Sega made some of the best games of all time on this arcade board. But I totally understand that 99.9 out of 100 of you do not want to or do not need to buy the hardware, because software emulation keeps the dream alive and is a lot easier to use. But every single time I do a Supermodel video update wise, the number one comment I get is I wish there was an Android version of this actual emulator, and that is what you're seeing today. This is a work in progress, not yet public but soon to be in beta, Supermodel 3 port over to Android devices. That's why you see this overlay right here, but in just a moment you're going to see me zoom in on the footage. Now that wheel will still be there, that's just part of the UI at this point in time, but I would highly presume when there's actually a release version you'll be able to adjust the overall screen placement of that, and I'm sure on Android set-top boxes or other phones that allow for controller support, you'll be able to remove that overlay as well. And even if this port is still not yet public, it is absolutely showing a ton of promise, and as far as the actual gameplay speed is concerned, it seems 100% adhering to what you'd expect out of actual Supermodel. Now, of course, if you look at the top of that Porsche 911 right now, you're going to see some pixelation in the textures. Not every single texturing mode is enabled here, but again, getting this working on Android in the first place must have been an absolutely massive project as far as the coding is concerned. So even if what you're seeing isn't 100% buttoned up, you have to realize this is absolutely a massive win for video game emulation for people out there that are just using Android. Now, the other thing is I always get asked for Android videos, so this is a little bit of a test. If this does good views and people are actually interested, I'm going to be doing more Android stuff in the future, so leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you want to see Android specific emulation videos, because I only have so many spots on the channel for content. I really have to be picky and choosy about what it is I'm going to decide to run. But honestly, seeing Scud Race run this well in Super 3, and that is the name of the new emulation port, is impressive because it seems to be 100% full speed. And the idea that in the near future you're going to be able to just take your phone out of your pocket and play Scud Race on Android, that is absolutely insane. You can just basically sit in the back of the car on a road trip pretending like you're actually driving one of these vehicles in real life. And that's going to be fun because I totally get it. Emulation isn't just a thing you do at home. There's so many different Android handhelds, there's so many different Android phones out there that being able to take these emulators with you and have good versions that are supported is a big deal, because it's one of those things. Sure, Supermodel 3 runs on Steam Deck and I have one and absolutely love it, but sometimes you don't want to take a massive Steam Deck out of your backpack and play on the train. And in Chicago, that'd probably be a really good one-way ticket to getting your ass mugged and losing your Steam Deck, if I'm being entirely honest. So this, again, just as we rip around the track here in Scud Race, is basically like a 9.5 out of 10 on the performance, like a 7.5 out of 10 on the graphical performance. Again, this is not a review, it is still a work in progress. I'm just saying, outside of the texture on the top of the Porsche 911, you'd be hard pressed to say it isn't final. Let's take a look at another game now. This is Fighting Vipers 2, and it is a ton of fun. You'll see here for the most part this intro looks correct, except that one texture gets stuck across the screen. That is because there's so many different calls to the actual video hardware on Model 3, and all of those need to be incorporated correctly into this new Android port, Super 3. So it is going to take some time, and when you do get a chance to play this when it first comes out, do expect that it is going to evolve over time. And that is just kind of the interesting thing about how these things get made. Some instances, things are just perfect. You wouldn't know you're using an incomplete or in development emulator. Other areas you're going to be able to tell pretty quickly that it still is being worked on. But again, I love to see behind the scenes. I love, and people think that it's funny I say this, to see how the sausage gets made. It's one of those things that I am more enamored with the process than I am with the final result, but I get for most people, you just want super solid Model 3 emulation on Android, and that is definitely coming, because the hard parts are already quote-unquote done. The games are running, they are running at full speed, they're controllable and playable, and that really is the hardest battle. From there, you just improve it until everything looks correct. And big thanks to the Cool Pup, the moderator of my Discord, for helping me with the captures as well. I'm basically, while you're listening to this, probably in my new studio at the new house that we closed on yesterday, building all of my different actual furniture so I can get my setup moved up there, because I'm planning on no downtime for the channel in this move. But the first two soundtrack samples, listen, and I'll be right back with more.
Let the action begin. Go! Round 2, let the action begin. Go!
I mean, the sound there I would say is about 95% correct, but watch what happens here with Picky when you actually win the fight. Basically, it's going to become a gigantic kaiju and end up filling the entirety of the screen in a really fun way. So it seems to be there's some Z priority issues there, where the actual hardware, in this instance the software emulation, isn't quite sure where to draw things in relationship to the depth of the scene. But again, that is a minor fix, and it's one of those things. That is how these things actually get developed. Let's move over to another racing game, Harley Davidson and LA Riders, another super fun Model 3 game that I absolutely love talking about any chance I get, and it really did show off the overall power of the Model 3. And do remember, if you're not aware, Model 3 isn't one platform, it's actually different platforms, or steps as Sega like to call it. They would increase the performance of this hardware as time went on, and even though it is all still in the Model 3 nuclear family, there's different Model 3 boards out there with different levels of performance. So when you're actually running an emulator, porting it to Android, you're not just dealing with one platform, you're dealing basically with 3 different platforms with slight changes, and those all need to be incorporated for and worked. If you take a look at those rear view mirrors there, or the side views, they are a little bit off, and obviously these trees, they have texture boxes around them that wouldn't appear in regular Super Model 3 emulation on Windows. But as far, again, as the performance is concerned, the handling and everything else, it is standing up, it is working, and that really is the most important part right now. And it'll definitely be interesting to follow along with the evolution of Super 3, because I know this is going to make a lot of people happy. Even though I'm not a huge Android user, I do have some setups for it and would be willing to make more videos. I know that a metric ton of people out there in the world are Android users, especially outside of the US. It seems to be way more popular. So I am happy this is happening, because I want the most amount of preservation and emulation for every Sega arcade board out there, and this is going to bring this emulator to hundreds upon hundreds of millions of people. Now, I'm not saying hundreds of millions of people are going to play Model 3 on Android. I'm saying when you think about the install base of hardware that could do it, even if 1/10 of 1% of the people played around with it, that is still an absolutely massive number of new people, if they just have an Android device, that are going to actually have these Sega games available to them. And that really is amazing and important, because it really keeps the Sega dream alive. And if you know me in the channel, the number one thing I care about is making sure that these games are enjoyed by future generations and people that want to play just to get some nostalgia back. Let's move over to Magical Truck Adventure, maybe the most unique and interesting game on the Model 3, where you basically had on the arcade cabinet some sort of pump that you would push up and down. I played it once, it definitely is a fun time. I wouldn't say that it actually emulates using a hand truck on a railroad, but then again, I've never done that, so I am not the subjective judge on whether or not that would be accurate. Here, all you do is push an analog stick or a virtual controller up and down to be able to approximate it, and it does work, and it is a ton of fun. And I would say this one, again, has exactly the speed and performance I would need out of this, and that is the most important thing. If the game is not running full speed, it's not going to be fun no matter how good it looks, but honestly, here I see no problems whatsoever. It's also going to be our second soundtrack sample, because Magical Truck Adventure has some great music and voiceover, so go ahead and listen, I'll be right back.
There they are! Can we catch up with them?
What bad losers you are!
Oh, go! Yes, go! Yes, go! Now we caught up with them! It hurts! Now! I got it! Well done! We did it!
Super fun soundtrack, and the reason why I'm so stoked about this and Super 3 coming to Android, as well as Supermodel emulation in general, is, trust me, if you see a Magical Truck Adventure arcade cabinet out in the wild, definitely put money in, because they are not becoming any more common. Some games like Scud Race or Daytona 2, you'll still see those in arcades here and there, but if it wasn't for emulation, basically no one would ever be able to play Magical Truck Adventure again. You will see here a little bit of slowdown, but this is an area that can definitely test modern PCs as well. When it comes to running at full speed, you have to have a pretty high test PC to be able to do this game 100% of the time at 100% speed. So of course, like any emulation, your results when this is available to play around with will vary depending on what sort of actual chip you have in your Android device. My recommendation would be get the most powerful thing you can throw at it and hope for the best. Definitely not going to be running on a potato. but you'll see here as we kind of play around into the game more, the nice thing is everything gameplay wise is functional. Yes, there still needs to be a little bit of improvement in the graphics, but if you just want to sit down and enjoy games once this is available, you're going to be able to do that. And again, it's not often that I talk about things that aren't just something I can leave a link to download, but this was something that I wanted to test out early because I knew everyone would be excited, not just because Supermodel gets an update, not just because Model 3 emulation is spreading, but because it is Android specific. But that is the news. While you're listening to this right now, again, I'm probably just hitting the wrenches and building up a whole desk and capture setup. It is absolutely a wild road ahead, pun very much intended, for me to take the entirety of Video Game Esoterica and the rest of my work and the rest of my house and move it about a mile north. So just think about me today. My back probably hurts. I'm probably covered in dust. I'm probably thinking about what video I need to make tomorrow before I go to the new house and start building more furniture or running more cables. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and the news. Supermodel is coming to Android as Model 3, and I absolutely love that. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.